Hello, everybody. I'm Whitney Diver McAvoy. I'm the president and CEO of the Yountville Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for joining us for our May 2024 webinar on navigating the AI revolution. It is wonderful to see you all here today. We have a wonderful panel of guest speakers who are experts in the AI field. Before we jump in and introduce them, I'd like to personally thank Andreas Mueller-Schubert for putting together this panel and for really being a resource for us within the Napa Valley on AI. So let's go ahead and dive in, and we'll have plenty of time for questions as well. You are welcome to put your questions in the chat throughout this presentation, and we'll do a pause after we hear from each of the panelists to address your questions. Okay, so I'll go ahead and introduce our presenters for today. Joining us is Peter Pilarski, who is the founder of Tourism AI Network. And Peter is in a fascinating space looking at the intersection of tourism and destination marketing in businesses within the tourism space and AI. So it'll be a really cool presentation from him. We are also joined by Robert Mitchell, who is the Chief AI Officer for WSI. Robert, thank you so much for joining us, and can't wait to hear all about your efforts and research around AI. And then, of course, Andreas with our local WSI Next Gen Marketing. And Andreas, I know many of you know him, and his firm has done a wonderful job curating our websites, and I know many of you guys on this call as well. Okay, I'm going to share the agenda for today's webinar here. We're going to first hear from Robert, 18 months of Gen AI, where we are and what's on the horizon. Following that, we will hear from Peter with the Tourism AI Network, AI powered by destination marketing. And then finally, we'll hear from Andreas on the impact of businesses and jobs and the AI that's powered agency through all of this. All right, so I'm going to now turn it over to Robert. Like I said, please post your questions in the chat. I'm going to keep everyone on mute for now, but you will have an opportunity to unmute yourself later on this call. Robert.
Don't mute me. I'm talking.
Well, no, of course not.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for taking time to listen to us ramble on about AI. It's exciting times. So next slide, we're going to talk about a few terms to get us a base level understanding. I don't know the aptitude of the people on the call, so this is going to give you some terms to get you started. So when people talk about AI, people often understand that artificial intelligence has been around for 60 years, that the concept of that is very sci-fi, but it's been around for years. And the concept is making machines think and act and perform and respond like humans. That's artificial intelligence. Well, inside of the larger concept of AI, so when you hear it used a lot, 60 Minutes or news blubs or social media, you'll see AI, AI, AI. Well, that's the larger picture. It's like saying I drive a vehicle versus I drive a Honda. That you need to, there's different layers of that. So let's go down one layer, machine learning. Now, machine learning is an element of artificial intelligence, but more importantly, it's algorithms that get better the more data they see. So it's structured data. So machine learning could be your Amazon cart. It could be the predictive text spell check in your text messaging, those kind of things, right? Well, then we go one step deeper than that, no pun intended, but deep learning. Now, deep learning is the first effort to mimic the synapses or the neural networks of the brain. So we're trying to make specifically machines perform and think. Obviously they don't think, but perform like the human brain through a series of weighted nodes. So where the brain has synapses, the language models have what we call weighted nodes. Those weights are basically how the different words in natural language, for example, are connected together. I know I'm getting deep, but bear with me. Inside of deep learning, there's something called generative AI. Now, that's what we're going to talk about today, because generative AI is why we're even talking today. It's the big technology that made artificial intelligence accessible to the common person, you and me being the common people, okay? And then inside of generative AI is a version of that that's focused specifically on language, which is a large language model, which is ChatGPT. Now, everybody on the call has probably heard of ChatGPT. So that gives you a sense of AI, then machine learning, then deep learning, and then what we're talking about is inside of the deep learning sphere, which is the natural language or large language models. Okay, so next slide. So what has been happening over the last 24 months? Well, before we get to the 24 months, let's get back to June of 2017, because that's what kicked off what is now known as GPT-4 or 4.0, as was released this couple of days ago. And in June 2017, there's a paper that came out called Attention is All You Need. And why I'm mentioning that is they termed the term GPT, which is Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Generative means it produces output. It produces text and sometimes images. Pre-trained means it read the whole internet. Not exactly, but basically it read the whole internet. And Transformer, it understands the relationships of words to each other. So a language model takes advantage of this new architecture and GPT more than most. And that's what happened in 2022. GPT-3 came out and introduced the generative AI world to everybody. And so you can make recipes and you can make, I spent all of December and November of 2022 doing a workout plan I'm never going to do. But I did do lots of recipes that I did make. I made lots of food recipes. It was so fun. I had a big weight gain in December. But from there, people started using it, having fun with it, and ideating, creating content ad nauseum, and it got really fun. It wasn't hugely great at the time. It was just really, really good. So good. It was like, why is this so good? People were having a hard time finding limitations. And then they started finding limitations like hallucinations and it making up dates of people's famous historic figures. But then the government was like, whoa, 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 all this content creation is getting out of hand. We need to put our foot down. You cannot submit something to the Copyright Office if it is generated by AI. Nice try. And you know what? And you're not even able to do it if AI was part of the ideation. Let's say you did 50% of this book and the other 50% is AI. You can only copyright the 50% that you wrote, and you had to be able to prove it. So that's the reason I'm bringing that up, is because the government started recognizing, hey, this is something, this is real, this is gonna get kind of big. Then GPT-4 came out in 2023, and holy crap, now we got a full-blown assistant. We got the smartest person in the room. And not every room, but most rooms. And it might not be, I always say to people, it might not be smarter than you on everything, or it might not be smarter than you on your area of expertise, but it's more smart on more areas than you are. Doesn't make any sense, but you get my meaning. And then we got to where it can generate text and then generate images and then video and then music. And then, oh my gosh, now you can talk to it. As this past week, you can just take it around the room and have it look at stuff and ask it questions. It's a real life her. And so the question remains, what does this mean for me as a business owner? How am I going to pivot this? So next slide. So this is all fun and games and great technology, but isn't that just like, something fun to play around with and make recipes, like I said? No. These stats, I highly recommend you going to this website, the very bottom there, it's semrush.com, yada, yada. But the reason why I say go to it is because there's 78 stats on AI in business. Very impactful. I took a couple of the ones that I thought were interesting. And keep in mind, this is almost a year old, some of these. On average, businesses can expect a 6 to 10% revenue increase. Now, 10% revenue increase is pretty big, especially if you're doing $1 million a year. But more importantly, I've seen impacts of the labor cost. So let's say you have $1 million in labor in your organization. You were able to upskill your employees by 10%. You just saved $100,000. More importantly, that $100,000 goes right to your bottom line as an efficiency gain because you don't have to hire another employee. Okay. And then that 100,000, if you ever decide to sell your business, that means you get 5 times that potentially when you sell the business. So you make 500,000. So that one change of using AI to upskill your employees and make them more efficient basically gave you $500,000 if you want to sell your business. So you don't tell me that's making a big impact on a small business. Anyway, so moving forward, it also, AI adoption is going to cause 20% of the enterprise employees needing to be reskilled because they're needing to be taught how to use this new tool. I mean, if you were around in the 80s and they just introduced Microsoft Excel to the controller department, that controller needs to be upskilled on how to use Excel and spreadsheets. Same thing now. All these employees are used to a certain workflow, a certain way of performing. They need to be upskilled. And it's going to create lots of new jobs. Next slide. Sorry. So I know I'm trying to go fast because I have a very short window here, and I might even look at the time. So, so one thing I want to bring to everybody's attention is cost savings, and this is a graph again a year old. So this is what was happening a year ago, according to Statista, on businesses that have used AI. I mean, 5,000 is not much, but considering what it costs to implement some of these solutions is not that much. Sometimes it's free. And some of these are saving over 100,000. 11% are saving over $100,000 using just ChatGPT. That's a pretty big deal. Okay. And next slide. So what I want to go through here is how we help businesses. So WSI has pioneered a method to bring this technology to the masses. We don't really work with enterprise companies. We work with small, medium, and some large businesses to integrate artificial intelligence tools and solutions inside of an organization. And we do so by first and foremost looking for a problem to solve. We're not a hammer in search of a nail. We go through a very detailed process. I'm not going to go through this whole framework, but rest assured, we want to first go through how and what is giving you the most headache right now as a business owner. So we do what's called a preliminary assessment. It's an hour-long call. Andreas can do it. We do it all throughout the world for different clients. And it's basically a call to give a current state of your business. How are you currently dealing with your problems? What kind of problems are they? And then we put together what's called a AIBA, Artificial Intelligence Business Analysis. And we deep dive over the course of 10 weeks, and we do workshops and training for your employees. And then we do what's called deep dives into those specific departments that you're having the most issue with. And then we identify artificial intelligence solutions that help all of your employees get faster, better, quicker, smarter, you name it. And so we can produce a very strong output. So next slide. And so then we develop those specific, integrations and AI powered solutions. Some of them are just automation. Some of them are AI agents that you might have answer your phone in the after hours. It might be that you have thousands and thousands of dead leads that you want to reach out to, and you don't have the labor for it. I got one. It's called an AI agent, and they sound just like Whitney, and lovely and pleasant and happy, and just and all trained on your business. It could be whatever your tourist business is. You can say, like, I want people to know that we have a feature at our park or whatever it is, right? So we help develop and deploy those for you. Now, before I go and hand it off back to Andreas, I want to put a few bugs in your ears of what's happening on the horizon. We talked about what has been, where it came from, what AI was. It was, your Amazon cart. Now it's generating songs and generating books and generating this, that, and the other, right? Well, it's automating tasks. It's upskilling your employees' aptitude, not just upskilling their time, but their aptitude. They're getting smarter. You can take a person, if you're a small organization and they're wearing lots of hats, you can make one of those hats super sharp, or whatever the proper analogy is, meaning we can make them smarter on the topics and the hats they have to wear by using an assistant that doesn't cost more than $20 a month, right? Increasing efficiency, optimizing workflows, providing data-driven insights. Previously, you had to be with a big organization with enterprise money to hire a data team, analyze your data, and produce you an output. You can do that now with ChatGPT. You can do it with a very simple tool and give you dashboards on your company's data, right? And I will tell you, I'll leave you with this. The biggest beneficiary in this day and age, let me tell you right now, the biggest beneficiary is not going to be the big, huge enterprise companies. It's going to be the small, quirky, scrappy, bootstrap companies that don't have the money for all this stuff, but they do have access to a $20 tool. And now they're going to be able to add employees, the workflow of employees without actually hiring new people. And because they don't have the budget for it, they're going to be able to be the beneficiaries. They're going to be able to take on their bigger competitors because they have access to these tools. So I'm trying to excite you all because it is an exciting time for anybody who is is scrappy and doesn't have the big budget and wants to perform the way the others do. I will tell you the biggest limitation you're going to have right now with any of these tools is your imagination. You're going to have to retrain your problem solving techniques. You're going to have to retrain how you go about the tools you use. I would say everybody on this call, don't use Google for a week, just for a test. Use ChatGPT for a week. Try that in all your problem solving. Although Google this week, they did announce some interesting stuff, so maybe you can use Google. But my point is, don't try to use the same methods of problem solving that you did before. And I'm Robert Mitchell. Hopefully that was not too much in too short a period of time.
That was great, Robert. Thank you so much. I've got one question for you, and then we're going to turn it over to Peter. Alan, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. And Alan's question is, what's the advantage of adding the $20 monthly charge to ChatGPT, you know, the free version versus the paid version?
As of this week, very little, because as of this week, they announced 4.0, which is omni-channel, they call it. Currently, all testing that I've seen has shown that it is better than the previous version, and it's free. So the answer is there is not much. Now, the real answer to your question is capacity. They're going to limit you the number of requests that you can do to the model, and so you're going to hit a wall if you're using it a lot. And that's where you'd want to have the paid version. You also don't have the liberty of making yourself anonymous. A lot of people don't like their prompts or the outputs of their prompts being used for future training, and that's what they will do under the free versions. But on the paid versions, you can actually opt out of that. I don't care about that, but some people do. And if you're doing anything for your work or anything that's government or health related and some privacy information, I would be careful about that. Not that you should be worried about it, but you don't want to be held liable if there in the future becomes that's a big deal.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Great job on going through those slides. Okay, Peter, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Peter Pilarski, founder of the Tourism AI Network. So just a couple quick introductory notes about me. I run an agency called CIPR Communications. We're a digital public relations agency. And we're part of the WSI Global Digital Marketing Network. And we work pretty closely with Andreas and his team, Robert and his team, and many others in our what I would call our very wonderful network of amazing human beings. I like to introduce myself first, always as an AI pragmatist. And the reason I talk about that is because when I talk to people in the AI space, I sort of find two types of people. On one side, I call them they're called the AI accelerationists. And these are folks who believe that AI is literally the solution to every problem humanity's ever faced. We must go forward as quickly as possible, take off all guardrails and just go in the direction of AI. And then on the other side, you have these folks that are called AI doomers. And these are folks that believe that AI is the worst thing that's ever happened to humanity. We must bomb the data centers. We must stop this at all costs because, like, you know, all life as we know it is not going to exist. And I introduce myself as an AI pragmatist because at the end of the day, neither of those are very valuable positions if you're a business person just trying to figure out how to navigate this space. And so I give you that context. I welcome or I invite you to be an AI pragmatist with me, because that is really the best, I think, approach. And by the way, sometimes I'm a doomer and sometimes I'm an accelerationist, just depends on the issue. So, you know, sometimes I fall in both areas. Next slide, Andreas. I started the Tourism AI Network back in December, and I actually did so in partnership with Andreas and his team, and also in partnership with Robert and the WSI team. So there are some of our founding partners. We have a few others. And really, our vision is to be the leading authority on AI in the tourism industry. And the part that's most important for me actually is the second part, which is to build a global community of AI-first tourism professionals. So I have an HR background. I'm a people person, and I think that we're powerful when we empower our people, and that's sort of always my starting point. We want to help drive the adoption of AI understanding in the tourism industry by providing education, collaboration, and building community of these thought leaders and practitioners. And finally, our values are just learning, support, partnerships, and growth. Because I've realized over my career that nobody can do anything in a vacuum, and the more we partner and collaborate, the more we will succeed. So next slide, Andreas. I like to always present this slide to people to give everybody a bit of context as to kind of where we're at in this whole AI thing. Jensen Huang, who is the CEO of a company called NVIDIA. If you haven't heard of NVIDIA, it's I think right now the third largest publicly traded company in America. Basically they provide the computing infrastructure to help power the AI revolution. So Jensen's in a very unique position to understand what's going on in the world. And he talks about these 4 waves of AI. And so the first really is this startups, foundational models, the ChatGPT and the OpenAI and the Google models, the Geminis and all those things that Robert's talking about. And then really building the infrastructure that we need to actually empower this AI revolution. And I actually just this week moved this "We Are Here" thing down just slightly, because we're just about sort of right on the edge of this wave 2, which is generative AI applications or AI co-pilots. So as Robert alluded to, both OpenAI and Google made some pretty significant announcements today that I think is getting us a little bit closer to this AI co-pilots or AI agents space, which is really, in my opinion, when all of us are going to start to notice AI in our day-to-day, in our jobs, in everything we do. We're sort of in this place still where you have to actually voluntarily decide to use an AI tool. Once this generative AI applications at the enterprise level really becomes sort of quite broad, all of a sudden, all these AI tools are going to be in all the tools that we use, and it's going to really, I think, start to make an impact on people. Wave 3, which Jensen talks about, the largest waves, probably from a financial perspective, is this heavy industries. This is really when these mining and these energy industry companies start to figure out how to adopt this AI into their organizations, manufacturing, things like that. So I think it's going to be the largest, mostly because those businesses, they're always talking about in fairly big dollar values of everything they do. And the 4th wave, which is something that's exciting to me, and I think should be exciting to all of us, is this sovereign AI. So this is really where countries use AI for their intelligence and culture. And I'm going to give you an example of something I'm working on right now in Canada, which is working with the Indigenous Tourism Canada to figure out how we can get basically all of the information and knowledge and all of the sort of historical background about Indigenous Canada into the training models of these AI tools. So I was told basically by my Indigenous tourism partners that we use these tools. They know nothing about Indigenous history. They know nothing about Indigenous culture. They know nothing about our languages. And we have a very keen interest in making sure that when people are traveling around and visiting indigenous tourism destinations and things like that, they're actually able to use these tools to get accurate information about us, learn about our culture. And so that's just one example of a project I'm working on in Canada that I think is really exciting. And I think that there's an opportunity also for DMOs to think about how can we collaborate and actually go and license our information to OpenAI so that we make sure that when people are traveling in our destinations, they're getting the most accurate information, and also so that we're getting paid for the tremendous amount of really good information that we've created over the years, right? So those are sort of some sovereign AI things. Couple of realities is, as I think Robert alluded to, the AI wave is here. So the time to act is actually before now, yesterday. So if you haven't started acting yet, start acting now. There's an interesting study that came out just last week by Microsoft and LinkedIn, and it was a global study, and it showed that 75% of people indicated that they're using AI at work. Many of those people, however, are not telling their employers because their employers aren't talking about it. So they're hiding. They're using it on their personal devices. They're doing all these things, and that is very concerning. And that's something that, as an employer, I think all of you need to be paying attention to, because you need to get in front of that so that your employees aren't compromising your information, using stuff at work on their computers, that kind of thing. So I think it's a really important thing. And then, change is happening very, very, very fast. I mean, literally this week, Google and OpenAI both I think Google made 100 different announcements. Like, I can't even keep up. It's crazy. I recommend to people this concept of radical acceptance. So, whether you're a doomer or an accelerationist or somewhere in between, we just got to radically accept that the world is changing in front of us. We're literally living through a revolution, and so we need to think and have thoughtful action and think deliberately about how we're going to sort of respond to that. I mentioned I'm an AI pragmatist. I encourage all of you to take a similar positioning, because at the end of the day, we're just running businesses and trying to figure out how to use this to our best advantage, and just being pragmatic about it is the best way to go. Top down and bottom up approach is a really interesting concept. So, top down, we can definitely set direction and provide a vision and sort of give some guidance to our employees as to how to use AI. But actually, a lot of the innovation is going to come from the bottom up. So if we just empower our people, give them the tools, give them some parameters, and empower them. Excuse me, got excited there. If we just empower them to start innovating themselves, I think amazing things can happen. And so that's really, I think, where the most innovation is going to happen. And then there's this concept I like to talk a little bit about, unrestricted exploration. And this is really where Robert started talking about, I think our imaginations are going to be our biggest limit. So it's not unrestricted AI use or execution, but it's really unrestricted exploration as to what can we possibly do to make our worlds different from what they were yesterday as a result of this technology. Next slide, Andreas. Just a couple of very big examples of some things happening around the world that I thought maybe would pique some interest. So, Dubai launched this AI-powered digital city concierge. So that's an example of, for example, what as a community we can do to try to, do something really special and really different. Dublin City partnered with OpenAI to show, potential of AI to support Europe's tourism industry. So, I'm actively looking for partners right now where we can go as a community to OpenAI or to Google or to others and to say, hey, let's make some projects happen. Let's do something really innovative. Kelowna, which is actually a wine country in Canada, their city actually has embraced AI in a pretty significant way, more around customer service. So it's not really a tourism play per se, but they are doing some pretty cool stuff and seeing some cool results. Next slide. So a couple things in terms of what this means is I don't want to sugarcoat it. This is not an easy world that we're living in right now. It's not going to be an easy transition. I keep telling everybody that AI is going to make all our lives really great. But first, we got to go through a whole painful period to get there. And that's just the reality. There's a big learning curve. There's a lot to learn. And we need to have some serious change management discipline to actually get the most out of this. We will make mistakes. So, we need to learn fast. We need to iterate and be nimble. And it's going to be very, very overwhelming for a long time for a lot of people. So I really like to think about AI as first a people and culture technology that we need to sort of worry about from a people and culture side, and a technology side second. So we really need to think about how to take care of our people. We need to really think about how to support our people, overcome some of their fears, some of their concerns about their jobs. And that's how we're going to drive AI adoption, I think, most effectively. And there's no question about it. This is like transformative technology. This is unlike anything we've ever seen. And in 5 years from now, I don't think we're going to recognize the world as it is today. Next slide. A couple things. I've been speaking. I've probably spoken 15 times in the last 4 months, different audiences, mostly tourism related. And a couple things I hear very consistently. Number one, everybody who's a nonprofit, anybody who gets any money from government, mostly the DMO space, spending a lot of time on reporting, spending a lot of time producing reports for government for their vendors. So we're currently working on looking at building a tool to help the DMOs specifically around this. But I've also heard actually from Whitney just today about this California violence prevention policy, and can we build a tool to help organizations sort of figure that out, right? I talked to somebody yesterday in Canada about ESG reporting, and can we build a tool to help destinations with their ESG reporting requirements, things like that. I hear a lot about seasonal workers and the need for solutions to help recruit, to onboard, and help with seasonal workers. So, can we operationalize our HR policies? Can we make it easier for seasonal workers to have a chatbot to get all their questions answered so they're not going to management all the time? Those are some of the kind of what I see as low-hanging fruit opportunities. Obviously, customer service. We're in the customer service world in tourism. So any kind of chatbots that we can create to help automate this customer service process, make us 24 hours a day, maybe make us available in other languages, all those types of solutions are things I hear about all the time. And then I just would suggest that everything about running a DMO is going to be completely transformed over the next little while. Probably running a business is going to be transformed, but certainly the DMO space is ripe for significant change. Final slide here. I always like to talk about the 5 steps of AI adoption. So number one, and this is really what Robert hit on, is WSI has created a process. And that process starts with this initial business analysis. So sort of, kind of just figuring out where you're at as an organization, how you adopt to change and technology, how you do training. Are there any people in your organization that are sort of putting their hands up as leaders, those types of things. Investing in AI literacy is critical. Everybody in your team has to be on the same page. Everybody has to be sort of understanding, getting the same information in order for you to be able to drive it forward. Creating a workforce or a task force that can sort of help to start to implement and drive change in the organization. Important corporate philosophy on AI, so responsible AI use policies, principles. What do we believe about AI? What can we use where? Those types of things. And then finally, once you've kind of gone through these steps, actually developing an AI roadmap so that in the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months, sort of how to move forward as an organization and get sort of buy-in from your staff and your employees. So I believe that's the end of my slides.
Excellent, Peter. Thank you very much. Okay, perfect. And that was a really good overview, and I think it'll be really interesting to see. I liked this. Yes, this graphic was very good. We have one question in the chat from Patty, and I think Andreas is going to touch on this a little bit, but her question was, can you give us some examples of how to use AI in a tourism-facing business or a food and wine business?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, certainly there's many examples. So I think I gave a couple. So certainly, I think in the HR space, there are a lot of opportunities to sort of operationalize your HR policies. I think there's a lot of opportunities also to operationalize your standard operating procedures. So, creating chatbots, even using ChatGPT and creating, if you're a small business, custom GTPs around some of those things. But beyond that, obviously, customer service. Making sure that all your team members have a tool. So imagine somebody asking you a question. You're in a winery and you have a computer in front of you and you have immediate access. You can literally ask your chatbot, tell me about this wine, tell me about its history, tell me about this. It trains on your knowledge and your information. And then you can instantly come up with answers and make sure that your customer service people, your front-facing people are providing accurate information that's consistent with your brand and the type of messaging that you want to provide. But I think there are many other examples I can come up with.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for keeping that short and sweet. Robert, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I mean, I just want to be clear that a lot of the time people are looking for an AI use case so they can visualize the solution. But yeah. I know I get that, but I want to be clear with everybody. Don't do that. look to what is annoying. What we try to do with artificial intelligence right now is take 30 clicks of a mouse down to 4, right? That's the kind of stuff that I think is going to maximize your workflow and inside of your organization. So whether it be a winery or a manufacturing company, it's what are those roles? What are those people doing? Maximize them, give them the tools to be more efficient, more productive, and so that you can equally be so as a company. That's the true unlock that I think is important to realize.
That 30 clicks to 4 clicks was a really good example. Thank you for sharing that. That was excellent. Okay, Andreas, I think you are up next, and I'll turn it over to you.
Let's first unmute myself. Going to be hard to follow these two guys. Great presentation. Thanks so much. So I want to talk a little bit about, and we already heard a lot about the impact on businesses and on our jobs. That's not going to be a lot of surprises what I'm going to say, but I want to also talk a little bit what we are doing. And, with Robert's team, the work that we have done, how do we use AI in our workflow, to give some examples and ideas. I think it's really clear, and Robert, I really like what you pointed out. It's actually the small businesses that have the big opportunity here. As a small business, and we are all small business owners, we can actually move fairly quickly. And Peter pointed out, it's a period of experimentation. Nobody knows really where it's going to end up, but we have to start. And to really get this first mover advantage, that's where the huge opportunity is. What we do today with AI, we might going to do it differently in next week or in a month or so. It's a big challenge, as Peter said, because we need to start somewhere and we need to kind of organize it in the work process as best as possible, but it's a great opportunity. WSI will release next week a global survey that was done with small, medium businesses. And that's really interesting. Probably one of the very few surveys specifically focusing on small, medium businesses. So we will announce this. it has some really interesting first-party data to see what's going on in the small, medium business space around AI. We will definitely communicate this. So what's really important, we said this too, I like this picture. So what we really can do for the first time, we can scale knowledge. Remember what Robert said about the models that are being found. It's really hard, and this is and we are a marketing company. I just take our marketing example. It's always hard to go finding a good starting point, getting all the data together. Very hard. Just look at the right picture. So you have ChatGPT. It's a little bit older statistics, but somewhere in the league of Einstein. So think about it. You have an Einstein sitting in the room. And think about you have another Einstein. Let's say you use ChatGPT 4 and now you use Gemini, get another Einstein view of it. And you're going to get another Einstein. Maybe you're going to use Claude. So you have the capability to get Einsteins for free. And as Robert said, they probably know more than you do. Now it comes back to us to ask the right questions. And when you talk to your boss, or you're looking at an interview and someone asks these questions, wow, I'm so impressed. Now I'm getting all the answer that is interesting. That's going to be the biggest challenge, to get our input, our questions into these smart systems to get the right answer. And this is really where the implementation of a process, of a structure will really make a big difference. And I want to give you the example what we are doing. So the next generation AI-enabled agency, and you see the 3 Einsteins I just introduced. So we have built tools, and Robert and his team, and I just want to give a couple of examples. So we have tools, we have built tools with processes, with input schemas, with all the kind of information. They are AI-based. For example, a lead generation genius, or a customer persona genius, or a brand narrative genius. So you put the information in that you learn from your clients. You're going to link to websites, give the AI tool as much information as possible. Then the AI tool is doing its work and you get an output. And I'll give you one example. I did this brand narrative. For us, that's the tool. That takes about 7 minutes to put the information in. The more clear you put the information into the system, the better the answer will be. But we're talking minutes. We're not talking hours. So that's a very interesting, and just a snapshot what comes out of the tool after the tool is doing its work. So it gives us different pointers and informations of what we can do. What is very important, and I really want to highlight, the human needs to be in the game. And I think if you have your people or you work with AI, make sure that it's always checked, it's always improved. You can go back to the tools and ask more precise questions to get the right answer. But it's very important to have the human in the game. And that brings me a little bit to the AI policies. Now that I think all are embracing and want to introduce AI into our organizations, I think as companies, we need to make sure, what are we doing with AI? What are the limitations? What is the responsibilities? So I hope that everyone has worked or is working on an AI policy that ideally is published, that your customers also know what have you done with AI and what's part of the result I'm getting. That maybe AI was influenced, but most important, as I think Peter pointed this out, 75% of people or employees are using AI, but it might be on the private tools. It might not be on the enterprise tools. There's other implications like data security that's very important. So keep the human in the loop. I quickly want to also go back to this AI business assessment or analysis that Bob was talking about. There will be an initial meeting, and we are offering this. Ideally, we have a Zoom transcript that will be put into the tool, plus our own notes, and then the tool will create the results that we see here. Again, this is something to start the discussion, to look at the results and then go into the process that Robert explained in his presentation. I have a link here where you can just sign up for this first initial step to get the process started. Please feel free to use it. We are available to do this. We have all the tools set up, and it's free. This first step is free, and then we will get some initial results, which I think is going to be a very worthwhile discussion for next steps. My last slide. We also have some helpful resources. Feel free to download this information. You can sign up for the free AIBA assessment. The ChatGPT ebook, we are releasing an ebook fairly frequently. It's the 4th edition. I think it came out about a month ago. Probably needs to get updated after all the announcement this week. But we are trying to keep everyone informed. So feel free to download the ebook, the 4th edition. As I mentioned already, next week we will have the AI Business Insight Survey that's going to be published. So feel free to, we will send an email around, but feel free to download and look at this. And we are also offering AI in action workshops. These are workshops that go deeper in really creating tools, really creating things, hands on the systems, what is available today. I would say this is, join the waitlist, the next one is coming. And I mentioned the AI principles or the AI policies. We have a template that we created probably it was already a couple of months back that is available. You can put your company information in there. It's a long prompt that will give you a starting point for an AI policy. That's really something I would recommend that everyone, every company has this available. And last but not least, join the Tourism AI Network to keep in the loop. Peter, thank you for presenting and driving this. It's a great opportunity to stay in a loop, to connect with others, and really stay ahead of the wave what's going on. That's it for my side.
Okay, very good. I like this format a lot. I think we're going to need to try to do this for other webinars in the future of bite-sized pieces that we can hear from multiple people. Is fantastic. Okay, we're going to open it up to questions in just a moment. Robert or Peter, did you have anything else you wanted to add quickly before we jump into questions?
I wanted to add real quickly that when he was describing some of these tools that he was using, sorry, Andreas was, he didn't even realize that this took teams of people weeks to do before AI. That's the impact. He clicks a button now, right? With 7 minutes of work and input and whatnot. But wow, the accessibility this brings to small businesses that don't have a large team or a large budget is huge. So now, before you didn't have access to this, now you do, and allows Andreas to upskill his level of service providing. Like now he can do this easily for clients. Now he can provide much more of an impact for those clients. It's kind of, it's like the raising waters raises all boats. I always mess that quote up. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. Yes. Very good. Thank you for that. Okay. If you'd like to ask a question, you can either type it into the chat or you can unmute yourself, whatever you feel most comfortable doing. Does anybody have a question that they would like to ask the panel? Robert, I see you've unmuted yourself. Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, Whitney, good to meet you last week and good to meet all three of you. Thank you for your presentations. I too am an AI pragmatist and in the AI business, besides the fact that I pour wine for a living at Jessup Cellars. But my question is, I seem to miss anything about AI integration into websites for the winery industry, which I am building a tool for. That seems to be a very important factor because all the websites in the Valley look exactly the same. They do exactly the same thing very poorly, in my opinion. They don't sell wine. They don't give answers to questions. So, what are your thoughts about that?
Andreas, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can start. I think a very, very important area you are highlighting here. I think at the end, it's getting the right people to the website is one of the challenges, and then really following the customer journey. The website is just one element. And I think AI will help us, and this is some of the tools that I showed, is really get an understanding about my target audience and what are they doing when they come to the decision to buy a wine or to do whatever they want to do. This customer journey, understanding it, having the data available, and then as a company being able to offer what fits to the specific step in my customer journey, that will be a big difference.
I want to jump on that. I'm not a website designer, so I'll skip over the website answer. But here's the bigger question, Robert, and great name, by the way. It's a lot of the companies are pausing for lack of doing it wrong, because what's worse is doing it and having the AI say something, behave ways that are, and so there's so many providers out there that aren't doing it right and are throwing away trashy products or wrapper products around an AI that has an API to OpenAI, whatever. But my point is, I'd rather do it right and wait than do it wrong and have my market share be affected. So we are working, and Andreas is working with winery clients, and this conversation has come up, and we are in the conversations about this stuff, but we got to do it right. We got to address the right problem. And I love what he said about the customer journey. It isn't just about the website integration or interactions, other interactions too. And
yes,
it's a big solution. And I agree with you. It needs to be changed, but we like to do it right. Not that you're not, but yeah, it's the point.
Maybe I'll just add just one comment to that as well. As I speak to a lot of people in tourism who tried chatbots prior to generative AI sort of type chatbots, and they didn't work well at all. There was a lot of disappointment. There was a lot of these things don't work. So there's a little bit of, I would say, gun shyness as well, to Robert's point about sort of, okay, well, we don't want to go down this journey again and do it wrong. Having said that, I actually see websites in general changing completely over the next few years. And really, I think the future is one where we go onto a sort of quote unquote website, which is really just a chatbot, and we start to chat with the brand on their online platform. I really see that where it's going, but I think there's a little bit of work to do to get to getting there. And the other thing I'll say too is, you know, the tools are only as good as the data and the information you provide them. And I think to Andreas' point, we need to make sure that we have the right content, we have all the right data, we have everything loaded up. So that's really the starting point. And then once we have all that really working well, then we can start to apply it onto the website to make sure that the website's actually answering the questions and doing the things.
Well, the good news is the data is all there for every single website, for every single product, for every single winery in the valley and every valley that serves wine, right? So
Yeah.
that is the key. The data is there. Now present it effectively. And that's what we're going to do at winespeak.ai. So drop me an email.
Awesome, Robert. Thank you for sharing that. Peter, I definitely have a follow-up question for you on that. Have you seen in your, travels a destination that is using a chatbot effectively on their website to help either create itineraries or to help answer questions about the destination? Is there a shining case study that you could point us to for that?
So I don't have a shining case study to point to you yet, but what I can say is that there are several destinations actually working on this actively right now. So probably in about 3 to 6 months, I will have some shining case studies to show you, but we're just kind of, at least the ones I've been talking to, still in development.
Okay, great. I could see that being of great value here for us in the Valley.
For sure.
Okay, good. Is there any other questions from our folks here? Yes, Patty, I see you've unmuted yourself. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to be so in this, but I'm very, very interested. I've been in sales and marketing and early adopters and training and of things like Facebook and for businesses way back in the day. Privacy concerns. Recently, my new television has AI on it. Why in the world hasn't? I know there's a lot of backlash on this is going to be the end of humanity, and but why would why would one want to use it on their television or on Facebook for privacy concerns? They're aggregating all of our data. And B, what are the concerns for early adopters in our industry, tourism, food and wine, any businesses, as you said? What are the concerns for the early adopters, because things keep changing so quickly? And there's probably a lot of, I'm scared to use it because they might get all my clients' data.
Yeah, so there's a lot of questions inside that question, and I think that when you're addressing the concern about privacy, about intellectual property, or even about your data, it's several different layers. So let's start with the question of is it say, well, first off, the TV question. Well, I mean, we'd be foolish to think that they haven't been collecting our data for years anyway. So yes, that our phone is like a walking data center for all the Google and Chrome. So that's the data part is out the door, at the genie's out of the bag. But when it comes to purposely using these language models to do inference and to do analysis and to do mess with your customer data, right? Well, most of the tools we build are behind a cloud firewall, vectorized data. There's no problem there, right? So when we build a tool and automation for a client, there is nothing. Even healthcare data, even OSHA, well, not OSHA, what's the one? Anyway, the healthcare data, that's not going to be an issue. But when you're using ChatGPT, be aware, right? When you're using it for generic queries and asking it about your customers, it's good practice to not do anything that you would feel like if they got hacked by a hacker and their data centers were hacked, that you would feel bad with what you shared. That's how I think about it. But the way the language model operates, there is no risk of it being seen by your competitors or by somebody else. Where the risk is if the data itself is hacked, not the language model and how it operates. But, there's a lot of layers in that question, Patty. Hope I answered it for you.
I'll maybe add a little bit to that, Robert, and just say when I advise, especially small companies and first movers and people that are just getting their toes wet in this whole thing is, when we're talking about use cases, I always like to sort of say, start off with high reward, low risk use cases. So at the end of the day, if somebody, I'm going to use the example of, operationalizing your HR policies, for example. It's like at the end of the day, if your HR policies became public knowledge, yeah, it's probably not that big of a deal, right? For the most part, maybe not all of them, but so but that's an example of something that could have a high reward, i.e., instead of you getting 100 questions a week from your team about how do I do this, what's the policy on that, if they just have a chatbot they can work with, I mean, that's a pretty big reward for something that's pretty low risk at the end of the day, right? So, I'd say that that's always a good starting point. And then, to Robert's point, if you're going deeper and building, sort of things that are a little bit more technologically innovative, then those are questions that need to be answered along the way and as you're developing the tools and the solutions.
Perfect. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much for that. Patty, good question. Anybody else have any questions that they'd like to ask our panel? You can either put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. Okay, good. I did have a question. We kind of wrote up some questions ahead of time just in case we had few extra minutes, but I'd like to go ahead and ask this one because I do think it was relevant. So, and this one is to Robert. So if you're a mid-sized winery and you're trying to follow the AI developments that are happening, as you said, there are multiple announcements that happened this week with Google and perhaps other tools or applications that fit to our business. Where would you recommend we follow that type of news, or is there a central location where we can get updates and we could see examples on how we could incorporate some of these new tools into our businesses?
Wow, that's so many questions in there, Whitney.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
So I'll start with where do you follow? Good luck. I do a weekly Monday meetup for all of our WSI owners, and I spend 4 hours on Monday morning, getting ready for that call because I'm scouring all the newsletters and the YouTube channels because I had to be up to date on what's happening in AI. So I would recommend picking a few newsletters like the Neuron or Ben's Bites or Matt Wolf is great. He does a YouTube channel. Matt Wolf is just quick and gives you the quick and dirty and no fuss. So those are how to follow AI. Okay. When it comes to figuring out what to do in your organization, call Andreas. He's in the weeds right now. He understands your industry. He understands what AI can do. And what he'll do is we'll kind of go into the nitty gritty, find those workflows that are extremely inefficient, right? and start maximizing your efficiency and producing better output, better, and all the stuff that we're talking about. And so that's my first step, is engage with Andreas if you want to see real change.
Love it.
But here's the best thing though, most important thing, get on the boat or get left behind. I've said it for almost a year now, and I feel like I'm a broken record. This is not a joke, people. You will get steamrolled by your competitors, your smaller competitors. At the very least, they're going to be able to do it more efficiently. So their pricing and their costs are going to go down. Just stuff like that. Their labor costs will go down, their pricing will go down, and then you won't be able to compete anymore. So keep that in mind.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Very good. Well, we're just about out of time. Pat Branch, thanks for your comment in the chat, which was, has anyone heard about GitHub or Copilot versus code for text editor? Says it's pretty amazing for analyzing overall projects or suggesting code selections.
Yes, I used GitHub. That was a precursor. But to be frank, now all of the models have good coding analysis, and they do a really good job of coding. But what you're describing, Pat, is the tool within VS Code that allows you to get answers to the code and fix the code, which is great. So I'm a big fan of it. But nowadays, you don't have to be a coder. That's the beauty of the generative AI. It's conversational in nature. You can just ask it questions. I asked it a question. I know we're in time. I had to generate a Excel macro for me. I don't know Excel. I don't know Excel macros, for crying out loud. It generated an Excel macro that made my thing my wife does for her work take 3 hours. Now it's one click of a button.
Wow.
It was really cool. So again, not a coder, but it was able to use AI to do it. So
wonderful. Well, I think that's a great note to end on. So reducing the 30 clicks to 4. So thank you so much to Robert, Andreas, and Peter for this wonderful webinar. Obviously, the comments are rolling in here, how great this was. So thank you to each of you for all of your time today, for joining us here at the Yountville Chamber of Commerce for our May webinar. And we'll be sending out this recording, like I said, and we appreciate your time today. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording now. So thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
thank you.